So what I've done here is fill Panope's bilge full of fresh water, and the idea is we're going to test the actual capacity of her emergency bilge pump. That is a Rule 4000. Now the 4000, that is standing for 4,000 gallons per hour, but that's in a best case scenario. That would be no head or the pump not having to lift the water any height and with minimal or no plumbing restriction. Now that's not really feasible or practical on a boat because boats are often having to pump their bilges up somewhat and through plumbing. So the rule company does give a table that lets you figure out or closely figure out how much the actual capacity of the pump will be. But I like to just test things in real life. Also, I just wanted to test my installation. This is the first time I've ever run this pump. It's been in the boat several years, but again, it is just an emergency pump, and I want to see just exactly what it will do. Now, other factors that affect pumping rate is the voltage drop. That would be affected by the wire size and wire distance. Also, the battery state and capacity. So I'll just give you some numbers here. There is no bilge pump switch, so it's just a direct wire straight to the 12-volt panel. Just got a plain switch here, bilge pump, that turns it on and off. The cable between there is 10 gauge. It is 14 feet one way, so it's a 28-foot round trip. The battery bank is 2 Group 31 lead-acid batteries. They have a capacity of 115 amp hours each, so it's a 230 amp hour 12-volt battery bank. The runs aren't that long, and that's a big, heavy cable to the panel. So I'm not going to run the engine or the alternator while I'm pumping, so there will be some voltage sag from the batteries, but they are fully charged. We've been sitting on a solar panel. There's the solar controller. We're currently at 14.3 volts and putting over, 3.4 amps into the bank. So they're nice and charged. So the plumbing of the pump is also pretty much ideal. It is the recommended 2-inch pipe, and this particular style of pipe is completely smooth on the inside, so there's very little flow restriction internally. There are no fittings, meaning no 90s, no elbows, no 45s. It's just nice, gentle sweeps all the way up and out through that ball valve, which is really clean and smooth on the inside, and then straight out through a welded standpipe out the side of the hull. The total height from the high point of that plumbing is just over 4 feet. Let's call it 4.5 feet once the water has gone down a bit. So again, 4.5 feet of height that the pump has to push the water uphill. Okay, let's flip the switch and see what happens. Voltage is 13.5. Okay, by my count, that was 8 seconds to get to the 5-gallon mark of the bucket. That works out to be 1,800 gallons per hour, which is just less than half of the pump's ideal pumping capacity of 4,000 gallons per hour. I think that's still quite good. It's certainly more than I could sustain pumping just manually with the bucket. And provided the engine could keep running and the alternator keep making electricity, that could go on indefinitely. It's certainly important to be able to access the inlet of the pump in an emergency. Certainly there'll be all kinds of floating debris in a real emergency, and those are known to clog pump inlets profusely. Again, just to wrap up, that was a 4.5 foot height of head that the pump had to push against. We did maintain over 13 volts of panel voltage throughout the pumping process, and again, just under half of the rated capacity.